Hi, friends. I'm host Eric. This is my beloved wife, Rachel. We're talking with famous people. I've long thought that the biggest problem facing America is the divisiveness, the outrage politics, the blaming, and so forth, back and forth between the various parties and people who identify as members of this group or that group. But I was thinking today more broadly how this tendency is not inherently bad, that it stems from people wanting justice. For example, if a criminal robs your house, you want justice, you want that criminal to be caught, held accountable for the crime, punished in some fashion. And this is understandable because in that instance, you've got an injustice that's committed by a specific person against a specific person in a criminal fashion, and that's the obvious and important and reasonable way to resolve the matter. However, Rachel and I were talking about how the breakdown of this idea comes when people expand the blaming paradigm to situations where it's not a specific individual committing a specific act against another specific individual. For example, if you have somebody who is unfortunately dead from an overdose, like Matthew Perry, not from an overdose, but from drowning on too much ketamine, there's a tendency in the population to want to find justice for this. It is unjust in the sense that it's unfair that somebody so young and kind of beloved by the world died in such horrible fashion, but that doesn't make it someone's fault. So, for example, with the Matthew Perry situation, you've got this so-called ketamine queen who's now reportedly going to be prosecuted, even though she's not the one who did too much ketamine in the hot tub. That was Matthew Perry. It was dumb, it was sad, it was unfortunate that he died from it. But it's not her fault. Now, there's an equivalent thing with Heath Ledger.
Yeah, so Heath Ledger, we all know, died of an overdose long ago. What, like 2009, something like that? And apparently, the Olsen twins are in some sort of court dealings right now because the maid who found Heath Ledger dead um, called Mary Kate Olsen first, and Mary Kate Olsen apparently said, "Don't call the police, I'll send my security team over." So, he might have gotten whatever drugs he was taking from the Olsen twins. I'm not sure. It's not sure. It's not.
Why did the housekeeper or whatever call the Olsen twins?
There was some sort of I don't know. That is a gap
The
that I
thing is,
don't
if there's
know.
anybody to blame for this, it's going to have to be the housekeeper for choosing to call the Olsen twins, regardless of what she was told to do,
Right,
instead of the ambulance. However, I agree in this instance, if the Olsen twins are saying to people,
yeah,
preventing the actual medical professionals from getting there, they are subject, potentially at least, to be held accountable by
yeah,
some kind of um, callous disregard statute or at least civilly liable.
right. Like that makes more sense for them to be on trial for that.
For something. They've
For
got
something,
some
right?
role in causing this problem. It is
Uh,
not the case that simply by selling Matthew Perry ketamine, that the ketamine queen has some role in his death.
yeah, and it's complicated because, I think of it. Also brings up to mind the most recent case with Alec Baldwin and the shooting on the set. Now, I don't. I know a lot of people want justice for that, but he was acquitted of everything, and I just think that I was surprised by that because I do think that he was somewhat responsible. I don't know. It's just
So what do you think made him more responsible in that instance than, say,
maybe not. I don't know.
because I felt as though if there's a professional whose job it is to
Yeah.
make sure that
That
this gun
that
is not carrying any live
yeah.
ammunition, and then
That's
you should be able to sort of defer to their expertise and responsibility.
Yeah. So it's really more of the person who's handling the guns problem, really, than Alec Baldwin's.
And if you think about it, like in terms of a race car goes into a pit stop, right, and they get new tires on, the race car driver doesn't get out to check to make sure the right tires are
It's
on.
true. I know.
Granted, there's not that time urgency in a shooting of a film, but
Yeah.
still the same. I think the analogy is not completely irrelevant.
No, it's just I was happy that he wasn't charged with murder. Um because
You mean you were happy he wasn't found guilty?
yeah, I'm happy that he wasn't found guilty.
Me too. I don't think he should have been found guilty, and I don't think this trend towards like finding the parents of some shooter, like there was some mass shooter, his parents were found guilty of something.
Oh, that's not right.
This, just as crimes of the father, so too crimes of the son. It does not go beyond the scope of your agency, your liability, right?
Yeah, but like with the Matthew Perry case, like the justice in tracking down how he got this ketamine, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like to me, it's just a simple case of the fact that he took ketamine and he was in a hot tub. Like
it was a dumb thing to do,
So really, it's
you don't go in the K-hole while sitting in water.
It's really Matthew Perry's
Yes, nobody
fault.
Matthew Perry's fault. But in these instances here, we're talking about situations where an individual is responsible primarily, and that's the individual themselves, right? For whether it's Heath Ledger or Matthew Perry, you got to own your own drug use and be responsible for it.
Right. Like, I don't think that the Olsen twins should be blamed for his death, but they can be blamed for like not taking the right steps or
they can have some civil liability. Yeah. However, there's another kind of instance where people blame. It's also inappropriate. It's different. So in these instances, we're talking about the wrong individual being blamed for something that an individual is to blame for. But in other instances, we've got more common, and the worst thing in America and maybe the world is this group, that group, that group is to blame for the current state of affairs because of their fundamental wrongness and evilness. Whether that group is Democrats or Republicans, libertarians, whether it's Antifa, whether it's Proud Boys, whether it's Christians, whether it's Muslims, whether it's women, whether it's men, whether it's weak Western men, whether it's, whatever group you want to name, whatever race, whatever creed, if you're looking to blame some group for the current state of affairs, you're looking to sidestep the analytical process that leads you to go, all right, I need to evaluate this kind of question, which is also a justice question, differently than the kinds of justice questions that involve individuals doing things to individuals. So, yeah, maybe the country is kind of going to shit at the moment in a lot of ways. Grocery prices are insanely expensive. Gas is expensive. Cost of living is higher in terms of real earning than it's ever been before. And these things are terrible. Who should we blame? The Democrats, the Republicans? Well, the truth is we should blame our response to COVID for a substantial amount of this by choosing to accept these unconstitutional, unjustified lockdowns that tried to take away the agency for health decisions from the individual and place it in the hands of some sort of government official. We cost ourselves a dramatic inflationary pressure that has reduced everyone's standard of living and buying power dramatically. And that's unfortunate. What can we do to fix it? I'm not sure. But what we can do to never fix it is find the person to blame, and that person being a group. It's the Democrats, it's the Republicans, it's the whatever. First of all, we all collectively contributed to this horrible COVID response. I didn't do enough to stop it. I was correct about it, but I didn't do enough. I could have gone up and put signs up on the freeway and stuff, So we're all collectively responsible for our fucked up response to COVID. And we should all understand that the reason we're so much poorer is because that's what happens when you make a substantial part of the population stop working for years. Regardless, nothing good will happen when we start blaming groups for shit that they can't be held accountable for.
Yeah.
Even if it's true that we're all responsible for it, we can't be held accountable for it. None of us is to blame per se. And when we start going, the problem is immigrants. I mean, how like Neanderthalish dumb could you be? The problem is a confluence of many different things, right? Blaming those brown people because they're Mexicans is not a good way to think about anything, right? So let's just stop all the blaming, except when some specific person is to blame for doing some specific bullshit against some other specific person. Then let's hold them either criminally or civilly liable.
Yeah, I agree. 100%.
Amen.